Welcome to the Birthing Conscious Humans podcast. This second series is about supporting birth and newborn life with water. Water helps us remember more of who we are by teaching us how to adapt and rise up to meet the waves of change we encounter in life, while also remembering ourselves back to a sense of fluid wholeness from the inside out. My name is Sophia Michalopoulou, and I'm an aquatic perinatal therapist, a newborn and baby swimming instructor, as well as a pregnancy and birth baby doula. Birthing Conscious Humans is dedicated to all those babies which live inside of us and which were not seen, were not heard or acknowledged because of a lack of time, ability, or even awareness. These conversations are for babies and children who do not have a voice, but sense and feel everything, and who are ready and waiting for us to become aware of them for more of who they are. For this second series of the Birthing Conscious Humans podcast with water, I invited friends and colleagues who are dear to my heart and with whom I have a personal resonance and experience of their therapeutic work in water. Holding space for babies in water before or after they are born asks that we do the healing work first and foremost with ourselves, because water transmits all of who we are. Water invites us to lead from the heart and to hold space with integrity of practice, while having the clarity to discern what is ours and what is another's to unfold. These conversations intend to inspire new ways of being with babies and children by expanding our own awareness into remembering more of who we are. You will also find out what supporting birth and newborn life in water might look and feel like, what the benefits of doing so for yourself and from a baby's perspective are, and how to introduce some of these to your pregnancy or practice. By supporting life with water, we are allowing birth to unfold in the most natural and gentle way possible, allowing us to retain, integrate, and remember more of who we are. Thank you for listening in. While immersed in warm water, I began to remember more of who I am. It wasn't what I was intending to happen, it just did. Characteristic thought patterns, physical sensations and movements, internal visions and images, emotional releases and behavioral synchronicities arose in me and through me, which I simply was not expecting. It wasn't the first time I was engaging in a therapeutic practice of some sort, but it was the last time I had the thought that I'm separate to those who I am supporting. I'd already been peeling the layers off the onion, so to speak, for many years, and I'd already processed a lot within myself in an attempt to improve my sense of wellness, as well as to refine my practice and the ways of my own being, which I consider essential when supporting birth and newborn babies. What I first thought when I enrolled in my first aquatic bodywork training program was that it was a step towards manifesting my vision of supporting couples preparing for birth in water, rather than working directly on myself. What I realized while immersed in warm water is that by surrendering to a natural element which has its own innate qualities and almost supernatural intelligence, I was slowly allowing it to seep deeply into my being and release the holdings, the contractions, the fears and the tensions which prevent the fluidity of my own essence to express itself fully. As the memories stored in my body unfolded, I began to piece together my soul's entry into this physical container, my own birth journey into this life. According to Thales of Miletus, who lived sometime between 624 and 548 BC, everything comes from water. Or at least water is at the beginning of everything. He taught that the first element out of which everything else is made is water, and that everything around us is filled with souls. What became louder with time was the realization that if I was to support and hold space for conception, pregnancy, and birth in water, I would need to recall, integrate, and embody the imprints of my own birth journey as well, since these, and pretty much everything else, inform the way I hold space and is what gets transmitted into the birth field, so to speak, particularly while immersed in water. Water contains, transmits, and amplifies what we are bringing to it physically as well as vibrationally, visibly and invisibly. Though I had preparing myself for this work on land for a number of years, while immersed in water, I entered new depths of my being. In water's lack of gravity, for example, I remembered the impact of gravity as I entered my own body. In the fluidity of water's therapeutic dynamics, I realized the rigidity of inherited structures and belief patterns embedded in my bones, in my flesh, nervous system, brain synapses, and in the resonance of my cells. I was able to recall the taste of the amniotic fluid and retrieve information encoded in my body's fluids. I was able to feel myself listening to my twin's beating heart and remember the familiar vibrational language I used to communicate with the outside world while in utero. While immersed in warm water, I remembered more of who I am. I had to face the fact that my twin vanished before I was born. I had to face my fear of dying too, and my terror of facing life alone. All these deeply embedded beliefs arose to the surface of my conscious awareness while being held safely and securely, supported by my professional water family, birthed anew every time we arose out of long days immersed in water together. I have trained and taken part in various healing and meditative processes before, including family constellations, rebirthing techniques, somatic explorations, even shamanic regressions. In water, however, I was able to surrender to the purity of its existence, to water's ability to hold me unconditionally, and to entrust myself to the process of becoming myself, free from the limitations of another human being's consciousness. I realized that when water is the teacher, the practice becomes love itself. With water as the container to remember myself in, I could go as far back and forward into myself as I had the physical and emotional capacity to do so. The idea that the same water has existed since the beginning of time on this precious blue planet of ours, and that it is the same water which flows in me as in the river Ganges at some point, or that the water I drink could become the fluid in a baby's amniotic sac, imploded the awareness in me that through water we are all interconnected. In water and with water, we are one. Indeed, we all breathe the same air or walk upon the same earth, and we all have the same capacity to awaken to the fire of our own consciousness. But water seeps into our skin. It permeates every crevice, and like communicating vessels, it seeks to unify with the waters inside each and every one of us. Very simply, the quality of the water I'm in affects the quality of water in me, and vice versa. While immersed in water holding a baby or a pregnant woman in my arms, for example, I am present to the fact that I have an impact on their emotional, physiological and vibrational fluidity through our resonance alone. The long journey of preparing myself through healing and awakening to my own vibratory nature, to be able to support the sensitive and responsible work supporting newborn life in water, suddenly fell into place. Every encounter, every event in my life has been an opportunity to refine myself with a single purpose, to recall and resonate with an energy of love, with integrity of practice, so that I can now receive the birth of a baby with as much grounding, acceptance, and expansion as simultaneously possible. It was said in Egypt that water is given the soul as a compensation for taking on a bodily form. In water, our bodies find the freedom our souls have lost, writes Harold Dahl, the creator of Watsu, in his book, Freeing the Body in Water. Before my experiences in water, I would have accepted this sentence as knowledge which stays in the realm of the metaphysical. But one of the most profound moments in my self-healing process was the physical recollection of a sensation stored in my body that I can only place at the moment of my conception. My spirit, experienced as amorphous prior to conception, went through a very intense adjustment to its new physical container, which in my case felt like 2 tons of lead dragging me down. I can only relate it to a feeling of falling into my body with an uncontrollable force weighing me down. It felt scary, very uncomfortable, and unwanted on many levels. Reconnecting to this place in me has allowed me to acknowledge the reluctance with which I used to enjoy life in general, or how foreign and uncomfortable my body used to feel. By being able to witness this pattern and access the depth of its source in me, I was able to hold myself with more acceptance and compassion in where I was at. By feeling seen, heard, and accepted at such a deep level of my being, I began to reclaim more of my essence, potency, and understanding of who I am. As I remembered more of my unseen parts of myself, the stronger I felt in everyday life. I was more able to trust my own wisdom, accept my own version of the truth, and better able to nurture and parent myself forward in life. Some of the questions which arise in me as an aquatic perinatal therapist are: how fluid is a baby's or an adult's movements in water? How deep is their breathing, and how readily do they let go in water? How comfortable are they in their own skin, and how readily do they seek out physical touch? How calm is their resonant tone? Some of the common patterns I might see in the water are a longing to return to another place, a holding back or staying small, a thirst to be seen, heard, and acknowledged, a fear of coming into stillness. The journey of being born is a profound, sacred, and physically demanding rite of passage by the incoming soul into human form. The initiate leaves behind a unified field of consciousness as she transitions into life in the flesh, which is often accompanied by a deep sense of separation and grief, which are rarely acknowledged at birth. Relieved to be born, the joy of birth swiftly replaces the memory of leaving a state of connection and bliss into a world of separation and physical sensation. Learning how to embody our physical container, integrating the multi-dimensional sensations we are able to experience through it, and the feelings which arise because of them, absorb every second of our newly found existence. Many of the gifts which come with us at birth are often left untapped as we speed up to catch up with the world around us. As we ride the waves of change in these intense times, many of our pre- and perinatal experiences arise to the surface as they are the foundation stones of our development in this body. Our early experiences as developing embryos leave an inescapable imprint in the very tissue of our physical bodies and have an impact on our capacity to show up in life. How confident, for example, do we feel to take on a new venture? How deeply do we trust ourselves to follow our dreams? How easily do we integrate into a new environment? How flexible are we to adapt and change to unexpected events? These are but a simple measure of how we show up in life because of our pre-birth experiences. How we can support life with water shows up in many ways. As developing embryos in the womb, for example. During pregnancy and birth preparation for the mother or couple. As the benefits of a water birth, of course. And as the integration of birth for newborn babies in water. As children, learning in water. As adults, healing ourselves back to wholeness, overcoming fears and other limitations. Precious to all the above is water's ability to hold us in our entirety. Water holds space, so to speak, for all of us, in all our capacity, whether we are aware of it or not, and gently allows us to reconnect with parts of ourselves that we are ready to remember. There is no forcing, pushing, or insinuating with water. We will only go as deeply as we are physically and emotionally ready and able to let go of, while our breath will easily be invited deeper into ourselves by the water. For babies and pre-verbal children, it is easier to integrate their birth experience in water, releasing any tension and holding in their bodies, which frees up their capacity for more uninterrupted experiences of life so far. For older children and adults, being immersed in warm water is a fun and pleasurable way to come back home to ourselves. Water's hydrostatic pressure invites us back into our bodies. Her lack of gravity allows for a release and a range of movement impossible on land, while water's ability to amplify and transmit through resonance allows for an energetic upgrade, which feels like a rebirth. While immersed in water, we can remember a deep state of surrender and a relaxation which the impact of stress and trauma no longer trigger us. In this often blissful state, we are able to remember our divine nature, our true essence, and perhaps recall aspects of ourselves which are empowering to our present moment. Water loves, water remembers, and water heals. Water has the extraordinary ability to respond to our actions, to our emotions, and even our thoughts. Water shows up what the state of our waters are in on the inside. For example, water will show up the fluidity of our movement, the depth of our breath, the source of our fear, and the resistance to life force energy flowing through us at any age. Of course, the younger we are, the easier it is to return to a state of fluid unity. By supporting life in water, we remember more of who we are. We might remember, for example, that we chose to be born, that we chose our parents and we chose the circumstances of our birth, that we were not conceived alone, perhaps, and that our bodies support our spirit and perhaps our mission in life. That we are not alone, that we are deeply loved and wanted. The delicacy of working with water, of course, especially around babies and within the field of birth, is how responsive water is to what we are bringing to it. As a therapist, educator, doula, or human being, what I bring to the water is not just my knowledge or expertise, but my entire being. Water does not discern, categorize, or separate in the same way the human brain does. Water loves unconditionally and accepts everything we bring to it. It is so delicate that it responds to my thoughts, my breath, my pulsation, and even the frequency of my cellular memories. Water asks that we be present in all of our being, in our deepest listening, and in our allowing to show up what wants to show up in us, in the other, and what is created through our own togetherness. In other words, the depth to which I have processed my own birth material shows up in the way I'm able to hold space for it in others. By accepting the shadow of birth, the more of life I can show up for. By expanding our own way of perceiving birth and early childhood, by increasing our own vibrational field through healing and conflict resolution within ourselves, by staying in our hearts while opening our minds to more of who we are allowing our babies and children to be more of who they are, rather than who we think they are or who we want them to be. Birthing Conscious Humans is a contribution towards what I believe is a much needed conversation about our evolving capacities as human beings, in which we might share our personal practices and experiences so far, which encourage and empower our children from the inside out to express and share their unique and individual ways of seeing and being, so that we can arrive at a common practice which supports incoming souls to express their unique gifts and intelligences as intact as possible once they are born. There's no clear precedent to this. We are being asked to step up as adults on this planet today and collectively support those being born in these transformational times. When a child feels free from having to follow, process, and transform her parents' or family stories, she will feel safe to share and express her unique ways of seeing the world. She will be able to share her accelerated capacity for new ideas and solutions. She will be able to stay in connection to her true self from the inside out and lead the rest of us to a potentially more peaceful and loving future. Thank you for listening in. If you would like to get in touch, please contact me at aquaticdoulaservices@gmail.com.